Yo, what's up, YouTube? Shabbat Shalom to all of my Israelites out there, and I hope that y'all had a good one. Right now, it is actually the night after Shabbat, and I decided to go ahead and get on this video and just go over something that's very important. One reason is because one of my subscribers also wanted me to kind of talk more on it, and also just because it's like the big thing in the Hebrew community. And of course, I am talking about Pastor Dowell, the allegations around Pastor Dowell being in adultery with Mama Nelly, and and so on and so forth. Now, just so that y'all would know, I'm not making a video per se about Pastor Dowell or Sir Dowell, King Dowell, whatever you want to say. What I really am doing, I'm just going to talk about what adultery actually is, because it's not really so much as adultery that's the confusing part. It's more so on like how the divorce thing, actually is according to the law. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just say this real quick. I'm not on here to actually say that Pastor Dowell is not in adultery, okay? Because the point blank period, he is in adultery. Because with the way that he is moved and how he's operating and everything, he is definitely in adultery. So I'm not on here to try to defend him. But what I am going to say is that when it comes to marriage and divorce, the law of marriage and divorce never changed from the Old Testament to the so-called New Testament. And so I say the so-called New Testament because, well, that's a whole nother video. But anyway, so nothing changed, because the thing about it is, the biggest argument as far as like Pastor Dowell being in adultery and how Mama Nelly's not really divorced and all that, it's because, in Matthew's 5, and also in other places as well too, Matthew's 19, so on and so forth, Mark 10, I think Mark 10:12, then you also have Luke. Like, these are all accounts from the different authors in the book of how Jesus actually taught about divorce, marriage, and adultery. So I need y'all to understand that when it comes to adultery and everything, the law of adultery is still the same. Marriage is still the same, but it's just that the way that Jesus preached it and taught it is because he's trying to preach it in a way to where we need to show and have more grace for one another, more grace for our wives, and more grace for our brothers, sisters, and not just with the whole adultery thing, but just with personal relationships, with any and everything. Because y'all have to understand, even though the law is still the law, we're not in our land anymore by the time that Jesus hits the scene. You see, his ministry is actually happening at the time when the Roman Empire has taken over Jerusalem and, taken over Israel, period. We no longer have sovereign power in our land. So because we're not in our land, we have to move a little differently, but still follow the law. And that's what Jesus was trying to teach, because by this time, we're separated from Yah, right? We've been separated from Yah for a while now. And, he's not looking over us anymore at this point. Not like the way he was when we were still in our land and when he took us out of Egypt and all that. He's not with us like that. He has separated or divorced us from him. So that's the reason why Jesus had to come on to the scene and actually do his ministry, preach the gospel, and of course die for our sins and be the end example of what the following law of what following the law actually does. But in addition to that, we also have to understand that since we have been removed from our own culture that Yah gave us, and our understanding on how to follow the law and what the law stood for, really, that has been lost in translation from then to now. So, because the main religious leaders, and I say religious leaders, were the scribes and Pharisees. Now, y'all have to understand, being religious and righteous is not the same thing. So for people that think that it is, I know that most Israelites or most real believers, this, that, and the other, they know the difference between real righteousness and a relationship and then religious. But just for the people that don't know, religious and righteous are two different things. So when the Pharisees and scribes were actually teaching the law, they were the only ones who actually had authority when it came to the law. Okay? They were the ones that had been put in place to have authority over the law of Moses, as they say. And I say the law of Moses because that's how the scribes and Pharisees always talk about the law. They don't ever say Yah's law or Yahweh's law, the Father's law. Every time they're talking about a law or a commandment or whatever, they always refer to it as Moses' law. And so that right there lets you know that they don't have the right spirit. And so therefore they're not teaching or being an example of the right type of spirit, as far as like having the real true faith and grace, mercy, and having and actually trying to bring true justice and love to our brothers and sisters. They don't have that type of spirit, so therefore they're not teaching that part. And that's the reason why Jesus was here, so that he can actually teach them what the law was actually meant to do in the first place and what it was meant for. So, just going on with that, let me go into what adultery is. Go back to the law. Adultery in the Bible is when a man has sex with a married woman. The married woman is not his wife, but he does have sex with another man's wife. That's what adultery is in the Bible. You see, now we believe that adultery is when a man or a woman actually steps out of their marriage and cheats with somebody else or have an affair with somebody else that they're not married to. But that's not really true. Now, however, for somebody that's really more so a New Testament reader, whether you call yourself Christian, whatever, you're going to think that adultery is just that. Because the way that Jesus preaches about adultery, if you don't really have real understanding of the original law, which is actually given in the Torah, then you're not going to understand what Jesus is talking about. So, with that being said, adultery is just when a man has sex with a married woman. It can't be when a man just has sex with another woman that's not his wife. As long as that other woman is not anyone else's wife, then he has not committed adultery. As a matter of fact, what he actually did, he just went and just made a new wife. And that's just the way that it is. Because marriage was consummated by sex, by the man and woman lying down together and actually having sex. Him going inside her, and then, boom, married. That's what it was. It didn't have to be a marriage license or anything, because that's what we do now. But that's not how Yah recognizes a marriage. He doesn't recognize it by a license. So keep that in mind as well too. So with that being said, for anyone that does not know that, how many of y'all out there have made so many different wives in your lifetime and didn't even realize what you were doing? How many of y'all was ignorant of what type of covenant you were actually making with these women? And then all of a sudden, you know, they never had the title of wife of anything. They might have had the title of girlfriend, jump off. They might have been a little side piece, you know, something. Maybe just a one-night stand. But you as the man has put them away, and therefore you actually have dealt with them wickedly if you were in the faith. Now, people that's not in the faith, y'all can do whatever y'all want. I mean, y'all going to be judged regardless, whatever. But when you are actually Hebrew and in the faith, to have sex with a wife, with another woman, or with a female, is to make them your wife. And so I had to go back and say female in the in the place of wife, because when it comes to woman in the Bible and also the word wife, they are actually used interchangeably when it comes to a wife. So if you actually look behind the word woman and look behind the word wife, you will actually see that they're actually used within the same context in most of the time. That's why every time when Jesus refers back to the creation of Adam and Eve, you know, when he says that, and Father made he and she, he made both male and female, because she was, you know, because that's what a woman originally was. She was made to be a female. Okay? So that's what a woman actually is from the jump. But they actually become woman, as Adam actually named her, when they become married. So wife, you can probably say, is more of a legal term or whatever, but then you have woman, you know, that's basically saying the same thing. A man saying that is my woman, that is my wife, he's basically saying the same thing. I'm married to her, so leave her alone. You get what I'm saying? So that's what it's actually saying, because this is what Jesus says in Matthew 5, and y'all can go read it and everything. You can start at verse 13, whatnot. Matter of fact, let me go ahead and read over that real quick. All right. So first and foremost, let me also point out that right in that same chapter, Matthew 5, Jesus himself says that he has not come to destroy the law of the prophets, but to fulfill it. Or in the NLT version, he says to accomplish the purpose. And that's what I was saying earlier. You see, the whole reason for the law, and the whole reason for the law in the first place, has been forgotten because it's not being taught, and no one is actually there to show a real example of how the law is really supposed to be, you know, played out, or how the law is what the actual purpose of the law is. The religious leaders just make it a bunch of laws and rules and stuff you got to follow if you want to be a Hebrew, whatever, and that just makes it more of a religion than just, what it actually is, righteousness. So Let's see. Go down to 530. Yeah, teaching about 531, then we're going to 532. All right. And I have to read from the King James Version just to bring more clarity to it, since it was the original English version of the Bible. So it has been said, whosoever shall put away his wife, let him give her a writing of divorcement. So he actually uses the word wife in there. But I say unto you that whosoever shall put away his wife, saving for the cause of fornication, causes her to commit adultery. And whosoever shall marry her that is divorced commits adultery. So real quick, if you actually go behind the meaning of divorce in that verse, and then you put it side by side by when it says put away, you'll see that it actually means the same thing. Now, if you actually go back, let's say for instance, you go back to the original law in Deuteronomy 24:1, you're going to see that that divorcement or divorce, whatever, actually means cutting, to cut off, to cut away. So it is a cutting. But if you look behind the put away in Matthew 5, it says to set free. It has a whole different set of definitions and meanings and everything, and the way that it's used in context. To send away, to relieve, to release, whatever. So whenever a man puts away his wife, he is actually sending her away, sending her out of the house. Just as the original law says, it says, if a man no longer finds favor, and I'm just paraphrasing, if a man no longer finds favor in his wife, then he can write a bill of divorcement, put it in her hand, and then send her out the house. Sending her out the house is the same thing as putting away. Just go look it up. See, I use the BLB, the Blue Letter Bible. With that, you can actually go back and look. It's easy to just go back and look at the original meaning and the context, of how words are being used. Because you gotta understand, the Bible has been translated from every way from Sunday. So it's being translated like crazy. So throughout the translations, some things like of the original text actually get lost in translation and therefore misunderstood. Now, moving forward. So like I said, put away and divorce is used in the same context just right there. But if you actually go to, like for instance, Matthew 19, that was Matthew 5:31 and 5:32. Go to Matthew 19. The Pharisees actually come to basically question Jesus. They're trying to tempt him. They're trying to basically set him up. It's a setup from the jump, and that's why they actually asked us: is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Because for someone that doesn't really know what the original law actually said, then they might say, yeah, that's what the original law was. But this is how Jesus answered. Have ye not read that he which made them at the beginning made them male and female? And said, for this cause shall a man leave father and mother, and shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. So he's basically saying that when a man and woman is actually married and joined together, they become one flesh. They make a soul tie. And that through that soul tie that they have, then it's almost like they actually are one body. It's like how we are with Jesus. You know, we all say that we are one body in Christ. So just like how Yeshua is married to us, whenever we marry a woman, they also become one with us too, one body. It's that soul tie. So And then he goes forward and says, what therefore God has joined together, let not man put asunder. Okay. And he said, a man shall leave father and mother and shall cleave to his wife. So let's move on from there. So then the Pharisees actually double back and question him and be like, okay, then why did Moses command and give a right in divorcement and put her away? I thought this thing was charging. All right, my phone about to die, so hopefully I can hurry up. So, they see that right there, that's what I was saying earlier. They actually tried to say Moses' law. Why did Moses command this? But if you actually go back, we already know that the entire law was given from the Father and given to Moshe. Okay? So, moving forward, Jesus answers them like this. He said, Moses, because of the hardness of your heart. See, he's actually playing their little game, because he's saying Moses as well too. Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, suffered you to put away your wives. But from the beginning, it was not so. And so he goes in and say, and I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. Okay? And whosoever marries her, which is put away, does commit adultery. So that was his answer. So he's basically going back and restating what he already said back in Matthew 5, when he was preaching to the disciples and the actual crowd of people that came to listen to him. And so, let's put some more emphasis on that. He says, whosoever marries her, which is put away, does commit adultery. So in Matthew 5, we already said that they use divorced in the place of put away. In Matthew 19, they fixed that and says put away does commit adultery. So this is so as far as like divorce goes, it sounds like that if a man puts away his wife for any other reason except for fornication, shall marry another, commits adultery. And whosoever marries her, which is put away, does commit adultery. Now, what does the original law say? It says give her a bill of divorce and then send her out the house. But you got to understand, the bill of divorce or the letter of divorcement, whatever you want to say, it says you basically giving them a letter of cutting or a bill of cutting, because that's what the original meaning behind divorce was, to be a cutting. So you're cutting that woman off, and then you're giving it to her to show evidence of the cutting away, letting everyone else know, anyone else that may want to marry her, letting her know that she's free to marry whoever she pleases, whatever. And then send her out the house. So the thing about it is, if you send your wife out the house, putting her away, and do not give her a bill of divorce in the first place, then all because you did not give her that bill of divorce, she is still considered to be married to you. So y'all are still one flesh, twain. See, the point of giving her the bill of divorce, because like Yeshua said before, he said that the male and female become one through marriage. So therefore, it is a cutting. In order to put something away, a man can't put something away that's on him or attached to him. Anything that's attached to him, everywhere he goes, it's going to go as well too. So you can't actually really put you away in the spiritual context. You can't really put away something that's still attached to you. So that's why you had to build a divorce. That's why divorce says cutting. You had to cut the woman off, or cut her off of you, cut her away from you, so that y'all become separate once again. So now the one becomes two once again, and no more twain. So with that being said, what Jesus is saying here, if you put away your wife, just putting her away, then you are causing her to commit adultery. Because even though she may no longer be in your house, and you're not taking care of your obligations as a husband, as far as like providing protection and all that, and you're trying to say that she's free, in reality, spiritually, she's not free. You have not actually performed the right process to actually do the divorce the right way. So now anybody else that sleeps with her, so-called marries her, they're actually committing adultery. And if you actually go back to the original law, it says that adultery means death. So when a man and a woman commit adultery, they're supposed to be killed. That's what the actual law says. Now, Jesus says except for fornication, and we all know what fornication is. We should. That's basically any type of illicit sex. It could be homosexuality, lesbianism, having sex with animals, prostitution, so on and so forth. But then you have to understand, adultery is one of the ultimate forms of fornication, because that is illicit sex. But because of how serious Yah takes marriage and Yahshua, if you commit adultery, then it was actually supposed to be punished by death in the original, law. Now, as Jesus says, he's not here to put away the law, or to negate or nullify the law as it was. He's basically just trying to reconcile Israel back to him, so that they could be Yah's people once again. But you got to understand, like I said, we're not in our land, so he has to preach the law in a way to where, he has to take in the time that they're in into consideration, and also the time that we're in, because this was for back then when he was on earth preaching the ministry all the way up to this very day. So this is what we're supposed to go by till this very day. So he says except for fornication. So that means if you put away your wife except for adultery or her being unfaithful, then you have caused her to commit adultery. Think about it. If she goes and sleeps with somebody else while y'all are married, then how is it that she's committing adultery, that you causing her to commit adultery whenever you put her away? She's already put herself away by doing the adultery in the first place. So you got to understand, even though the original law was death, Jesus had to change that part, basically, just because of the time we're in. We're not in our land, so we can't just go around killing people that cheat on us or commits adultery. So with me as a man, I can't go kill my wife and that dude legally, because of course, according to the law of the land, not Yah's law, but the law of the land, then I'm gonna have to get some jail time. Adultery is not an offense punishable with death, in this lifetime, in this world that we live in now. At least not here in the United States, it's not. So we had to take that in consideration. But we also have to understand that marriage was a serious thing. Okay? So the marriage supposed to be for life. So let's go back to the original law once again. Deuteronomy 24:1. Deuteronomy 24. Suppose a man marries. Well, let me go ahead and do the KJV. When a man has taken a wife and marries her, and it comes to pass that she finds no favor in his eyes because he has found some uncleanness in her, then let him write her a bill of divorce, give it into her hand, and send her out of the house. So that's what it says. He says if she no longer finds favor in his eyes because he has found some uncleanness in her. Now, let's stick with that for a moment. Well, you already know, if you go back and look, deeper into the law, we already know that Yah considered uncleanness to be a serious thing. Like, we were defiled depending on whatever the situation was. And so if we were considered unclean for something that we did, then we couldn't even participate in, we couldn't go into the temple, the sanctuary, the tabernacle. We couldn't even partake on the Sabbath. We couldn't partake through the feast days or anything like that. We couldn't do any of that. If we so much as touch a dead body, we were considered unclean until, we go through the whole ritual process to get back clean again through the priests and all that. That's another thing. There's no priest in the time either when Yahshua comes back. There are no priests anymore. Even though there's a temple, there's really no priests. And then it says, because he found some uncleanness in her. Okay? So that uncleanness, in this case, if you go back and look behind the word uncleanness, that means improper behavior or shameful exposure. It has some stuff with nudity and all that. But like I said, in the context that he's using it here, he's talking about if the time comes and he no longer finds favor in her, she no longer finds favor in his eyes, because he has found some uncleanness in her, then he gives her a bill of divorce, so on and so forth. So the way that the Pharisees try to word that, they try to trick up Jesus and be like, oh, well, isn't it lawful for a man to put away a woman for any reason? Who knows? They probably really thought that's probably how they interpret it. I don't know. But it says uncleanness. So therefore, improper behavior, because you got to understand, before a man marries a woman, he already has to be attracted to her, because the law of attraction plays in that part. So he's already looked up and down. He can see if she's beautiful or not, if he likes her, this, that, and the other. So if he decides to move forward and still marry her, that means that he has love for her, or feels like that he could love her and be a good husband to her. At least it's what a good righteous man would do. So, but only after she's married. So at this point, it can't be anything really like physical about her. I mean, who knows? It possibly could be like a tattoo or something, but that's on preference though. But I'm sure that when it says uncleanness, it's really talking about more about uncleanness in Yah's eyes. Okay? So it's not about just looks or some type of flaw aesthetically. It's really talking about shameful behavior. Because after a while, she may seem like that she may be a good wife when she first gets married to you, but then after a while, she may actually start showing her true colors, and you actually start seeing like, oh, she might have some ulterior motives, or nah, she's not being obedient. Because when it comes to being a wife, submissiveness is the number one thing. and to be a helpmeet. So you're supposed to help your husband accomplish whatever he is trying to accomplish. And you have to basically be bound by his law in his house the entire time you are married to him. You go to Romans 7:2 and 7:3, it tells you that. It says that a woman is bound by the law of her husband. Now, when I say the law of her husband, that's going to play a part in the whole uncleanness thing. And also when what Jesus says too, except for fornication. Now, besides fornication, besides like actual physical sex with somebody between two humans, fornication was also used when it came to idolatry. Spiritual adultery. That's what idolatry is. It is spiritual adultery. And that is the reason why Yah put us away, because we committed a lot of spiritual adultery. We committed a lot of other real adultery too. But that spiritual adultery, like over time, it just became bad, because we was like sacrificing even our own children to the gods and this, that, and to foreign idol gods, to sticks, stones, Baal, Asherah statues, so on and so forth. So idolatry, we was running rampant with idolatry. And if you go through Jeremiah, for example, Yah actually says that we committed adultery against him as a people, because we was going after other gods and following their laws, and also making contracts and agreements with these other nations that were surrounding us. This, that, and the other, instead of just staying firm on 10 toes down and, to our Yah, the original Yah, the only Yah. So that's one reason why he put us away. So down with that in mind, you go back over to Matthew 5 and Matthew 19, and Jesus says fornication. Fornication also means if the woman goes against the law of her husband. Y'all hearing me? So fornication is also used to go against the law, used when she's talking about going against the law of her husband. Because think about it. I said that woman and wife is, used interchangeably with one another. You're not considered a woman really until you're actually married. You're female, and you may be a father's daughter or whatever, but you're not considered as a woman or a wife until after you're married, right? So when it comes to being an actual wife or woman, they're very different. All that being called that entails being submissive to the law of your husband. And this goes for the believing husband and the non-believing husband. But either way it goes, that woman is bound by the law of her husband, as long as that husband does not try to make her do anything that goes against the law of Yah and actually makes real sin. Then she is bound by the law of her husband. So whatever the husband wants and how he wants things ran in his house, she has to work according to that. She has to move according to that and make sure that she's helping him achieve his goals first and foremost. Are y'all hearing me? Are y'all understanding? So when he says put away in the New Testament, that is not changing what the original law says. But like I said, it is taken seriously, because with fornication, because think about it, why would a man wants to put away a good woman? Because if you are actually a wife, then the man should never ever try to put her away. He should always be one flesh with her, because that woman, that wife, is actually going to help him, reach his full potential. She's actually going to raise the children according to his law, so they can be the most righteous as possible, so that he can actually take pride in his children, so he can take pride in his home and have peace in his home. And so basically what Jesus is trying to say, low key, he's basically trying to say if she is a woman or a wife, then you have committed adultery against her if you put her away. Because if you try to put her away, you have dealt with her wickedly. She hasn't done anything to you to be put away. And she's actually a good wife to you. So you have to, basically love her. You're commanded to love her. You're commanded to take care of her, provide for her. This, that, and the other. Protect her. Love her just as Yahshua loves us. That's how you're supposed to love a woman / wife. Now, you got all kinds of females. You can say Jezebel was a female. Jezebel was Jezebel was a monster. That's what she was. She wasn't just a female. She was a straight up monster. So even though she had the frame of a woman, that's not a woman. And she was not considered a woman either in the sight of Yah. And she definitely wasn't considered a wife to Ahab. And Ahab, he basically just let her do whatever she want. So, of course, he got judgment for that as well, too. Along with Jezebel. They both got judged bad. Like, it did not end well for either one of them. But anyway, so Ahab was married to her, but she wasn't a woman. She wasn't even a wife. That's why if you see a woman with that Jezebel spirit, that can also be considered fornication, and even into this day and age. So just run away. Not run away, but stay away. So that's why we also have to be careful about who we select to be our wives as well, too. Just so we don't have to put anyone away. We have to make sure that we do our due diligence and we actually really know who we're marrying. And know that if we marry, we need to understand that they may not be perfect, especially in this world that we live in now. Because most of us are coming out of this world. So we're all worldly. And we still have the residue of the world on us, even when we come into the truth. But at the same time, we gotta still look for certain traits in who we want to be our wife, and see they actually wifey material. And if you are in the truth, then both you and her need to understand that her being a wife, she has to submit to you. It ain't no 50-50 thing, no partnership, no nothing. You as a man provide for her, make sure she has everything she needs, make sure that she can guide the house the way that it's intended, and always try to make it to where she can just stay at home so that she does not have to work. Always try to do that, because if you try to have a woman like try to do a job just like you and then still have to come home and still watch the kids and do this, that, and the other and everything else around the house, I mean, that's actually a lot of work. Just being a mother and a wife at home is a lot of work. It's not an easy thing. You can ask my wife. It's a lot. And I have a lot of respect for her because she puts a lot of work in just to be a wife and mother every day. And every day is not sunshine and roses. But she still fights through it, and she's able to be better for it. And, she deserves a lot of respect and praise from me because of what she deals with on a daily basis and what she has to do. But at the same time, I'm making sure she doesn't, at this point, she does not have to go to a job every day. I got this. I'm providing. And I'm still making moves to get better and better and better. So I'm just saying, just so that she know that she's taken care of and secure and stable and they ain't got to worry about nothing. I'm always making moves to do just that. So, just to end this lesson about adultery, remember, adultery is when a man has sex with a married woman. When Jesus talking about that you're causing a woman to commit adultery by putting her away, He's talking about if you're not actually giving her a formal divorce and you're not going through the whole process and all 3 steps of the divorce, then yeah, you put her away, you're dealing with her wickedly. Now, in the cases that a woman is dealt with wickedly, there's some ways, there's some things around it. There's a good way for a woman to get out of a marriage if she is being abandoned or her needs are being neglected. Have to look more into that. I know back when we was in our land, back in the land, a woman had to marry somebody else in the tribe. So if, for instance, like if a brother died, who was her husband or whatever, then at least she will have the rest of the tribe that's supposed to be there to take care of her, especially like the leaders or the distinguished men of each tribe, the seniors, the elders, whatever, basically take care of her and still be a covering over her. Or if the men have brothers, they also there as well too. But you see, when we was put over into slavery, and even till this very day, we're not living tribal, most of us. We're all spread out. We're all separated from one another. So that's why he also says, do not put your wife away for any reason except for fornication. Because if you're doing that, then you're actually putting her in a very hard place, because if you're not even properly divorcing her, she can't even go and marry somebody else lawfully. If you were in the faith, she can't even go marry somebody else lawfully. She has to stay by herself or be reconciled back to you. But if you're really putting her away in the wrong way, then that means that you're not looking for reconciliation. Like, you're really trying to hurt her and put her in a bad situation to where she basically has to be alone for the rest of her life. I mean, unless you give her a proper divorce. And like I said, we don't have the elders of the tribe or anything to help out the situation and to go to the man and, try to handle that. We don't have any of that stuff in place for us now. So that's why Yahshua is basically saying, don't put your wife away for any other reason except for fornication. Because that's the only thing that should make us want to put away her for a reason. Now, real quick, I just want to hit on this, the uncleanness thing. When a man says unclean, when the Deuteronomy 24 says uncleanness, you have to remember, Yah did not allow certain things when somebody was considered unclean, whether it was naturally unclean or ceremonially unclean. So, that's the same thing. So even back then in the original law, a man was not supposed to put a woman away and then basically have her passed around in the whole tribe or whatever, if that was the case. He's still supposed to be with her and be his wife. Be her wife for life. Sorry, I don't think I said that right. But he's supposed to be a husband to her for life, because marriage is supposed to be a lifelong covenant. And that's why when it comes to adultery, it actually meant death originally. But like I said, we got to move a little differently, because of the time that we're in. So we can't go and just kill somebody for adultery. But like I said, when it comes to uncleanness, that's basically the same thing that Yahshua is saying as well too. Because it is uncleanness or, unclean behavior, shameful exposure, whatever, however you want to say, if a female does not listen to her husband. And it's definitely a real shame if she goes out and has sex with another man. She has sex with another man, she's done. Like, in those cases, you don't even have to put her away. Because if she can't even be an obedient wife, if she can't even go by your law, then, you know, it's basically like she doesn't believe or really in the faith in the first place. She can't be considered a wife. So then you can just put her away. It's not going to matter either way or the other, because she's going to do whatever she wants. And especially if she fornicated and has sex with another man, she's already basically making some type of covenant with that man. But at the end of the day, it's not going to be good for her or him. Especially if you are a righteous man, and you're trying to do right by her. You see, that law was also put in place too, just so women won't be passed around. Because in the end of the day, women are supposed to only be under their father as young daughters growing up, and then as young women of marriageable age, their husband is going to be their head, their covering, and their spiritual leader, the one that's supposed to guide them and lead them, you know, in the faith. Like, that's what he is supposed to do as the husband to her, and also the children as well too. So at the end of the day, that is what divorce really is. That is what adultery really is. And once again, I say, Pastor Dowell, the way that he moved about and did things, he did commit adultery. Okay? He tried to do things the legal way, you know, through the state, compared the lawful way to have these divorces be done. But he purposely separated these women from their husbands, just so he can have them to himself. He did it with Jamie, and he also did it to Eric Gonzalez as well too. Especially Eric Gonzalez, he's still married to Mama Nelly to this very day. So yeah, he is definitely in adultery. Because at the end of the day, if Eric Gonzalez or Jamie never actually was the ones that was in the forefront of the divorce, and the process wasn't done right, then technically it was not a lawful divorce. And when I say lawful, I mean in the sight of Yah. It was not a lawful divorce. So yeah, he is definitely in adultery. But yeah, I hope, to my subscriber, you see this video, I hope that really answered your question. And I hope I just brought edification overall to the entire community, the truth community, Israelite community, the Bible community, whatever community you are. If you're trying to really get some real truth, I hope this to be some real edification for your life. But that is my video. If y'all have any questions or want to ask me something, or y'all have something to say about anything that I said, just put it in the comments, and, you know, I'll probably see them at some point. And then, you know, if I see it and it sparks my interest, then I'll answer it, so on and so forth. And if y'all have something that maybe I missed or whatever, then, you know, y'all let me know too. But anyway, that's going to be my video, and I see y'all. Shalom.